We're watching PCTV with Yanni Ochoa, Christian Gilliam, and the guy who does everything else, Antoine Floyd.
Good morning, America, and for the last time this year, I'm Christian Gilliam, and this is my co-anchor,
Yanni, and that's right, Christian. Today is December 31st, 1939.
8:51 a.m., and I hope that everyone's having a fantastic morning.
And now here's Anton with sports.
Well, due to the war, many sports events are going on.
Hold on.
What's you do to read the whole tape?
Well, the Packers did whoop it, and Texas A&M are the NCAA champions of this year. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Anton. And man, that game was quite a doozy.
Speaking about that game, those Giants were a curve.
Yeah, they didn't score squat.
In other news, yesterday there was a shootout between some goons and coppers.
2 goons suffered bullet wounds while the rest fled. Fortunately, no officers were injured.
Thank God, Chris. Now we're going with Anton with the weather.
5, the lows will be 44 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can see down here in Phoenix, we don't have too much going on. But just to the north of us, we have thunderstorms, stuff like that. Tornadoes, snowstorms. Down here we got a little bit of clouds covering, too bright. But up here we have thunderclouds, thunderstorms, and rain and precipitation and all that good stuff. All right, back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Anton. I hope that everyone's having a great year and a great decade. Let's review what happened.
It's been a tough 10 years, America. To begin with, in 1930, the Nazis gained 107 seats in the Nazi election.
And in 1931, Al Capone gets sent to Alcatraz due to tax evasion. And also then that same year, Spain becomes a republic to overthrow the king.
In 1932, in bad news, Charles Lindbergh's baby is kidnapped. But in good news, the air conditioner is invented.
And in 1933, the first New Deal was implemented. Also, in that same year, Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany.
In 1934, Mao Zedong began the death march for 368 days.
368 days?
Yes.
Wow. And in 1935, the Social Security Act was implemented, which had benefits for unemployment.
In 1936, FDR is re-elected.
Wow, that's what, the second time?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And in 1937, World War II starts. And also, Chinese Civil War comes to an end.
In 1938, oil is discovered in Saudi Arabia.
Oil, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we're going to need a lot of that. And in 1939, the Spanish Civil War, sadly, comes to an end with the Republic surrendering to Franco. An intense 10 years.
Intense.
Tense.
That's what my paper says.
Thanks for watching, guys.
In the 1930s, because of the Depression, the clothing for the people were no longer affordable. They had to cut back in every place that they could. And so no longer were the flappers that were well known in the 1920s and into the 1930s, but more or less they went into just plain dresses that had no kind of definition to it, but all went down 5 inches below the knees and just drooped at the shoulders, and nothing very formal about it. But then it was reusable. It was soon to become fashionable later on toward the end of the 1930s, when they started changing the trend of it again to where it had a more fuller shoulders on it, and then it was becoming more elegant and everybody else could afford it. Yeah, the men's fashion hardly ever really changed. They did have to come up with a more higher waist on their suits, so it was more to the top of their waist, and then their bigger pockets. Their pants were made of synthetic material to where the legs cuffed at the bottom, and that was how they dressed all the way through the 1930s. But like I say, it it did start becoming fashionable at the end of the 1930s when they started redesigning the clothes again. So that is the trend of the 1930s.